Okay, so hey guys, welcome back to another Sport This Week video, and in today's video I've got tennis, basketball, ice hockey, darts, NFL, football, cricket, boxing and UFC and news. And if you are new around here and you haven't subscribed, please do so. Like the video if you do need like the video, and let's get straight into it. So I'm going to start off with the tennis news this week, where there's quite a lot of news because it is the start of the Australian Open. And so Raducanu won 2-0 versus Korpach, Sakari won 2-0 versus Yuan, Nadal won 3-1 versus Draper, Tsitsipas won 3-0 versus Halis, Swiatek won 2-0 versus Niemier, Medvedev won 3-0 versus Giron, Kontaviet won 2-0 versus Grabher, Zverev won 3-2 versus Varias, Jabeur won 2-1 versus Zidansek, Djokovic won 3-0 versus Carbayas, Baena, Sakari won 2-1 versus Schneider, Swiatek won 2-0 versus Osorio, Nadal lost 3-0 versus McDonald, Medvedev won 3-0 versus Millman, Raducanu lost 2-0 versus Guoff, Tsitsipas won 3-0 versus Hijikata, Kontaviet lost 2-1 versus Linette, Tsitsipas won 2-1 versus Reyes Varela and Ramanathan, Zverev lost 3-1 versus Momo, Djokovic won 2-1 versus Kukaud. Jabeur lost 2-1 versus Vondrousova. Tsitsipas won 3-0 versus Griekspoor. Swiatek won 2-0 versus Buxer. Medvedev lost 3-0 versus Korda. Sakari lost 2-1 versus Zhu. Tsitsipas lost 2-1 versus Kulhoff and Skupski. Djokovic won 3-0 versus Dimitrov. Swiatek lost 2-0 versus Rebekina. And Tsitsipas won 3-2 versus Sinner. And that is all the tennis news. It's going to be carrying on and will be the finals of the Australian Open come this time next week. Moving on now to the basketball news. Lakers lost 113-112 versus 76ers. Celtics won 130-118 versus Hornets. Warriors won 127-118 versus Wizards. Heat lost 121-113 versus Hawks. Lakers won 140-132 versus Rockets. Heat won 124-98 versus Pelicans. Lakers lost 116-111 versus Kings. Celtics won 121-118 versus Warriors. Heat lost 115-90 versus Mavericks. Warriors won 120-114 versus Cavaliers. Lakers won 122-121 versus Grizzlies. Celtics won 106-104 versus Raptors, and Heat won 100-96 versus Raptors. And that is all of the basketball news. Moving on now to the ice hockey news. Bruins won 6-0 versus Flyers. Red Wings lost 6-3 versus Avalanche. Maple Leafs won 5-4 versus Panthers. Canadiens won 4-1 versus Jets. Red Wings lost 4-3 versus Coyotes. Bruins won 4-1 versus Islanders. Bruins won 3-1 versus Rangers. Canadiens lost 6-2 versus Panthers. Maple Leafs won 4-1 versus Jets. Boldy has signed a 7-year deal with Wild, and Canucks have hired Tochet. And that is all the ice hockey news. Moving on now to the darts news, where's the Nordic Darts Masters, where Humphries won 6-1 versus Cantel, Price won 6-0 versus Drew Ruiz, Wright won 6-5 versus Nilsson, Smith won 6-0 versus Labanuskas, Van Gerwen won 6-3 versus Harrison, Price won 10-7 versus Van der Berg, Smith won 10-7 versus Humphries, Wright won 10-9 versus Van Gerwen, Price won 11-10 versus Clayton, Wright won 11-8 versus Smith, Wright won 11-5 versus Price to win the Nordic Darts Masters. And that is all the darts news. Moving on now to the NFL and news. And so, Buccaneers lost 31-14 versus Cowboys. Chiefs won 27-20 versus Jaguars. And that is all the NFL news. Moving on now to the cricket news. India won by 12 runs versus New Zealand. Zimbabwe won by 3 wickets versus Ireland. Ireland won by 46 runs versus Zimbabwe. India won by 8 wickets versus New Zealand. And that is all the cricket news. Moving on now to the football news. So, Danilo has joined Forest. Liverpool 1-0 versus Wolves. Appleton has been sacked by Blackpool. McCarthy has been hired by Blackpool. Man U drew 1-1 versus Palace. Inter won 3-0 versus Milan to win the Supercopa. Leeds won 5-2 versus Cardiff. PSG won 5-4 versus Al Nassr. Sommer has joined Bayern. EA Sports Team of the Year was announced, which featured Courtois, Hakimi, Militao, Van Dijk, Hernandez, De Bruyne, Modric, Bellingham, Messi, Benzema and Mbappe. Man City won 4-2 versus Spurs. Real Madrid won 3-2 versus Villarreal. Sheffield United are under transfer embargo. Ings has joined West Ham. Depay has joined Atletico Madrid. Wood has joined Forest. Trossard has joined Arsenal. Leipzig drew 1-1 vs Bayern. Juventus has been deducted 15 points. Madueke has joined Chelsea. Liverpool drew 0-0 versus Chelsea. Bournemouth drew 1-1 versus Forest. Leicester drew 2-2 versus Liverpool. Versus Brighton. Villa won 1-0 versus Southampton. West Ham won 2-0 versus Everton. Palace drew 0-0 versus Newcastle. Napoli won 2-0 versus Salernitana. Dawson has joined Wolves. Man City won 3-0 versus Wolves. Leeds drew 0-0 versus Brentford. Arsenal won 3-2 versus Man U. Leverkusen won 3-2 versus Mönchengladbach. Juventus drew 3-3 versus Atalanta. And Real Madrid won 2-0 versus Bilbao. And that is all the football news. Moving on now to the boxing news. So, Courtney has joined Matchroom. Abdullah will fight on the 28th of January. Good to see him back. That's somebody we've had on the channel. Good to see him back on a big card this weekend. Gonzalez won via TKO in round 4 versus Morales. Stevens won via KO in round 8 versus Hemphill. Old Burton won via unanimous decision versus Brusov. Green won via split decision versus Castro to remain a WBA Continental American middleweight champion. Wiggins won via unanimous decision versus Farrell to remain North American welterweight champion. Gaidry won via unanimous decision versus Stiverne. Stringer won via points versus Navarez. Harris won via TK in round 1 versus Sermaj. Forrest won via points versus Buchetta. Clark won via stoppage in round 4 versus Espindola. Parker won via unanimous decision versus Massey. Esserman won via majority decision versus Congo to remain British, Commonwealth, IBF European and WBC International Silver Welterweight Champion, which I did predict wrong, but was seemingly a very good fight, and maybe they might rematch, I don't know, we'll have to wait and see. But another, not quite gone to that yet, we'll speak about that in a moment. Riakporhe won via TK in round 4 versus Glowacki, and another very big fight and a big result was that Smith won via TK in round 4 versus Eubank Jr. And I mean, predicted it wrong. I feel like a lot of people did. It seemed like it was a bit of a surprise, especially the way that it went down with the TKO in the round 4. Apparently, Eubank looked good in the round before, and I mean, that shot, he caught him with a good shot, Smith, and managed to get him out there very impressively. And I mean, it seems like they probably will end up rematching, but it seems like it will probably be on Smith's terms and possibly being at Anfield, which would be a good place to have a good fight. But yeah, it was a great fight seemingly, and fair play to Smith, a big win for him. And the final bit of boxing news is Suzuki will fight Harrison on the 12th of March, and that is all the boxing news. Moving on now to the UFC news. So Nelson will fight Rodriguez on the 18th of March. Jan will fight Davalishvili on the 11th of March. Aldo is inducted into the Hall of Fame. Potieria won via KO in round 1 versus Rua. Rua has then announced his retirement, which is, I mean, a shame, but I mean, you kind of expected that this would come at some point. And I mean, he's a Pride champion, UFC champion, an absolute legend of the sport, and a good career, very good career, and I wish him the best in retirement. Walker won via KO in round 1 versus Craig. Andrade won via decision versus Murphy. Burns won via submission in round 1 versus Magny. Moreno won via KO in round 3 versus Figueiredo to become flyweight champion, which I did predict right. And Hill won via decision versus Teixeira to become a light heavyweight champion, which I didn't predict right. Didn't do very well with predictions this week, but fair play to Hill, champion, and his first time being champion. And it'll be interesting to see if he can retain his belt against any of the other top contenders in the division. And after that fight, Teixeira had also retired. And I mean, like I said, same with Rua, and a legend of the sport. I mean, I saw some stat today that he was inducted into the rankings when the rankings were first announced, and he was in 4th. And he never left the rankings throughout his whole career, and that's stemming from like 2008, I think, in the UFC or something like that. So, and I mean, he's finished it in 2nd in the rankings, and so that's pretty crazy. And I mean, it shows how good of a fighter he is and how much of a legend he is. And it would be a shame to see him not fighting anymore. But like I say, same with Rua. Wish him the best in retirement. And yeah, that is it for today's video. I hope you did enjoy. Like video if you didn't, like video, subscribe if you're new, and thanks for watching.